My good buddy Rece Davis back here on the show. How are you, Rece?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are you?
I'm good. It's interesting how things have kind of gotten shaken up in the Western Conference a little bit since the end of the NBA Finals, with Anthony Davis going to the Lakers and obviously Mike Conley now going to the Jazz, and draft choices are being used in all of this. I'm wondering what you're hearing about potential more trades going down before tomorrow night, Rece.
I think that a lot of teams are really still trying to be active. I was talking to Woj just a little while ago and to Bobby Marks as well. And the Lakers are trying to find more teams to include in that deal with the Pelicans, which can't be finalized until July 6th. That's another issue for another discussion, I guess. But, they're still trying to clear out some more salary cap space to pursue a third max free agent potentially, to try to reshape their roster to find the complementary pieces to LeBron and AD. I think that the Pelicans have been very aggressive in trying to auction that number 4 overall pick that they are getting from the Lakers on Thursday night. So I still think there's a lot of movement to come, and obviously Memphis has now completely declared what we pretty much already knew by trading Mike Conley, that they are going with John Morant in the second spot. And though the Knicks have been trying to throw a little bit of a smoke screen there and having Darius Garland in to work him out, the point guard from Vanderbilt, I believe they'll end up taking R.J. Barrett from Duke in their spot.
Well, as you know, New York sports fans don't really have their heads on straight, facts straight on draft nights in any sport pretty much. Although you can't blame them for kind of wondering who Kristaps Porzingis was a couple of years ago. If the Knicks take Darius Garland out of Vanderbilt instead of R.J. Barrett out of Duke, third overall, that would be quite the moment in Barclays Center for you, Rece Davis, that night, I think.
Yeah, it would, and you know how it is, Rich. We end up rooting for the story. That would be very entertaining for sure. It would also, I was met with some groans, and admittedly this was a bit hyperbolic. I sort of went off in the meeting yesterday and said, if I'm going to compare this to college football, I said, I don't know that I understand this fascination with the Knicks. In all the years, I get it. It's New York and it's different, but every year I've been doing the draft, it's always the Knicks are going to get this guy. They're going to get LeBron. They're going to get KD. They're getting him. They're getting him. They don't get anybody. They don't win. I said it'd be pretty easy to put it in college football terms to say that the Knicks have the arrogance of Alabama and the tradition of Vanderbilt. So it's it's been a long time since Dave DeBusschere, and I don't know. It seems like a really important time for them, and there are people who believe that you can build a winning team around R.J. Barrett. He's a real mature guy. He's obviously highly skilled. Among freshmen, I think only 4 guys have scored more points in freshman year than he did. Guys like Chris Jackson and Michael Beasley on that list. So, he's a tremendous player and one that perhaps Knicks could recapture some of that elusive glory behind.
It's amazing, Rece, when you think about it, because you just brought up again, obviously, Morant going second overall to Memphis. The Conley trade, the Anthony Davis trade might not have happened the way that they happened at all if it wasn't the lottery. That was a huge night for, obviously, the Pelicans being able to take Zion tomorrow night and then collecting the 4th overall selection for the Lakers, which was huge for them to get up there. And the fact that the Knicks were 3rd and not 1st overall means New Orleans did what they did for Anthony Davis. And then the Conley trade might not have happened if Memphis didn't have the number 2 overall pick in their back pocket for tomorrow night. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing was aimed, as you know, at keeping teams from tanking and trying to maintain the integrity of the regular season. But the way that played out, it certainly did, and already has had a huge impact on the direction that teams are taking. And I think really that the draft, Rich, just sort of raises the curtain on what's going to be the next few weeks to a month or so of sort of reshaping the balance of power in the NBA, given the fact that the West is suddenly open with the injuries to Durant and Klay Thompson that will, if Durant even chooses to come back to Golden State and Klay as well, but, they're not going to be playing for the Warriors one way or the other for the majority, if not all of the season next year. So it's sort of changed thinking a little bit. Then you have the drama in Houston. Has it been overstated? Can Paul and Harden coexist? And if so, can they elevate it to the point where they can finally get to the championship round of the finals? It's, there's a lot out there, and teams have to make decisions about trying to jump through this window of opportunity that has been created to some degree by free agency and to a larger degree by the unfortunate injuries to Durant and Thompson.
Rece Davis of ESPN getting ready to host the NBA draft tomorrow night from New York City, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'll tell you what, you brought up the Rockets story that Yahoo broke yesterday that Paul and Harden's relationship are as unsalvageable is the word that was used by an unnamed source. I'll tell you what, when you look at Chris Paul's salary, they better get that guy from The Office, that actor from The Office, to pull a State Farm, sort of bringing everybody together, because I don't know how I don't know how Chris Paul gets dealt if he has, in fact, even though he did post on a Bleacher Report Instagram feed that this is not true. It's news to him. He said that he's demanded a trade. What are you hearing about all of this in New York City, day before the draft, Rece?
I think most of our guys believe that, certainly it's tense, but I'm not sure that they are quite ready to say it's to the level of being unsalvageable. But I think the most important thing is probably what you just brought up. It's going to be hard to find somebody, not that Chris Paul isn't or hasn't been a great player, but you have to find the right team that would be willing to take on that type of salary and believe that he's the guy that could perhaps get that particular team, over the hump and into the finals and give them a chance to win the championship. I mean, so that market would be very small. So I think the best case scenario for Houston, if they can, is to try to make that work. But as I mentioned earlier, if this is your opportunity, and it has in fact reached a level that you do not believe it can be fixed, and there's been tensions with the front office and Mike D'Antoni in the contract negotiations there, maybe this is the time you make a bold move. And if you can find a partner, it's really easy to say, well, let's trade this guy and get somebody else. But with the salary cap rules, even as high as the salary cap is right now, you have to find not only willing partners, but partners who are able to make it work financially.
So you've got your hands full, Rece, tomorrow night, as you did the NFL draft, at least when trades are made between teams, right? When Josh Rosen was acquired by the Dolphins, the Cardinals made the pick in the Dolphins spot right then and there, and it was announced that player was going to the Cardinals. With the NBA, I mean, it's possible that the Lakers choose 4th overall tomorrow night and that the Jazz choose 23rd overall tomorrow night for, respectively, New Orleans or some other team, 4th overall, and Memphis for Utah for Memphis tomorrow night, right? I mean, and you've got to explain all this in real time.
Yeah, that's going to happen, and it can't be like the Anthony Davis deal can't be consummated or completed or official until the new league year starts. So it can't be July 6th. There's also that clause if they pushed it back to the 30th, there could be more cap room for somebody. But what's the incentive for the Pelicans? And a lot of things that are way down in the weeds. The one thing that I hope, and this is I had someone explain this to me not too long ago. This is a collective bargaining issue. And the situation is if they were to open it up and make it the way it should be, which is the way the NFL does it, I think the thought is it would open other issues in the CBA that that they don't want to do yet. Hopefully, what's going to happen in the future is that the new league year will start before the draft. Right. Therefore, you can do exactly as they do in the NFL, and when the trade is made, like with Rosen, the team where the player's going actually makes a selection, because it's going to be a weird thing when the Lakers picked fourth overall, is one of the things I asked. I said, well, we all know he's not going to the Lakers. Does the guy still get the hat? And, I guess he does. If he wants to put it on, he'll get the L.A. hat, but he's going to New Orleans.
I know, like the famed Eli Manning holding up the San Diego Chargers jersey looking like he just swallowed a whole bottle of castor oil, to use, I guess, an old school phrase. I mean, that's a rarity in the NFL these days, but it's so difficult to keep heads or tails. So how would that work, Rece, in terms of new league year happens before the draft? Would they move the draft into July? Because, or are you saying that? What would happen?
Now, look, I'm speculating here and throwing out my opinion. What I would like to see, and I think would be better for our draft, and maybe they'll say, hey, look, that's good for your draft broadcast, but not our business.
Right.
But it would be great if the new league year started, say, after the finals or whatever, and a few days after the finals, you kept the draft about the same time. You said, okay, now maybe you can't pursue free agents until the July 1st date, which they've always had. But in terms of what the finances are and whether trades will work, here's the date before the draft, and because the Lakers and Pelicans would like to find another team or teams to add another layer to this to give the Lakers some more cap space. But even so, they have the framework of the deal. They can do the deal as it is on July 6th. They would like to add something else. But my understanding is that, the deal can be done as it is now.
Right.
What I'd like to see is for the new league year to start so that we can finish this and that the deal can be done and that we know and if the Pelicans will pick first and fourth unless they trade the pick. So hopefully that's what will happen. But again, I'm speaking completely selfishly for the good of our draft.
No, look, Rece. I mean, obviously, a draft being viewed is a crucial PR element for any sport in any league. I'm sure there will be tons of fans tomorrow night, and that's going to be your job in real time to not only keep things afloat with your analysts talking and the clock running down, to basically say, don't be confused by that Laker hat on this young man's head, and he might not even be a Pelican either. I mean, so it's not it's not easy.
No, you're right, and that is something that I'm going to have to be very cognizant of and have everything in front to remind people. This pick is part of this proposed trade. That's the verbiage they like for us to use. A proposed trade until it is deemed official. So you'll continue to put that out there and continue to remind them. And I've also mentioned to our people, I think that we need to have that constantly in graphic support as well, so that when people see, whoever goes forth, Jarrett Culver, DeAndre Hunter, Garland, or Kobe White, whoever it might be, and they're putting on a Laker hat, we in graphic support and verbal support constantly, he's not going to be a Laker, that kind of thing.
Not a Laker. Should you say at the bottom, not a Laker. We don't know where he's going.
I would wonder if the guy, and the other thing too, and this is more of a sentimental type deal. You work your whole life. You have this great moment, right?
Right.
And you get drafted, and you're a lottery pick. You're in the first round, and you know that you're not going to this team. And boy, you've always dreamt of putting on that hat, and you're putting on a hat that's not going to be your team. It's sort of I sort of hate it for the young men who are in that situation.
If I'm not mistaken, Rece, you've had in the last couple of years at some point somebody talking about what it meant to him to be drafted by that team, and got really emotional or told a story or they rooted for this team, and at that point they were being traded to another team.
Mikal Bridges.
Right?
Yeah, Mikal Bridges last year from Villanova, picked by the Sixers, traded to the Suns. And, he was,
I shouldn't laugh,
at the time, he was a Philadelphia guy and, played at Villanova and, was very excited about it. And then, then he was part of the deal. And, look, that's part of the business of it. And I understand, it's not all about sentiment, but yeah, if with his situation, they were still working on a deal. With this one, the deal's already done, so you'd like to see him be able to have his moment, proper attire. Although, as you rightly point out, maybe picked by the Lakers for the Pelicans and still not wind up a Pelican either. So this might be an example in which it's an unavoidable situation.
By the way, that verbatim will not fit at the bottom of the screen tomorrow night, Rece. Maybe on a scroll, like what you just said, might be. You could scroll every last word, all 20 of those words at the bottom of the screen. That might
We'll need to use an economy of words. Rich, you've known me long enough that I'm not going to use 5 words when 55 will do. So
I love it. Have a great broadcast, Rece. I'll be watching.
All right, buddy. All right,
Take care.
See you, Rich.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
pal. It's Rece Davis. There you go.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.